Hi everyone, welcome to IMI Vlog. I'm Hendrik Pretorius, CEO and attorney at IMI Partner, a business immigration law firm in the San Francisco Bay Area of California, where we deliver a modern business immigration solution to clients of all sizes, helping them develop best-in-class immigration programs. Okay, so there's been a lot happening in the immigration world as of late. On today's topic, I'd like to discuss the announcement that USCIS is planning to possibly furlough 13,000 employees. Now, this is about 2/3 of the entire workforce of the USCIS, and they are in charge of processing immigration applications filed from within the U.S. So, change of status applications, extension applications, for H-1B holders, L-1 holders, O-1 holders, and just the whole alphabet soup of different status types that individuals and employees can hold. So today we'll talk a little bit about what this means, and then we'll look at 3 implications that businesses are going to have to prepare for and going to have to deal with moving forward. Now, this is obviously on top of the immigration executive order that the Trump administration released and then recently amended at the end of June, and of course the COVID-19 pandemic that we are all having to deal with. So it's certainly just adding another burden, another item to prepare for, to plan for, and hopefully this overview will be helpful. So, how did we get here? Obviously COVID-19 has impacted everybody. The USCIS released a statement on their website. They indicated that, they reminded us that their fees come from filing fee revenue. So that's interesting to keep in mind. The Trump administration certainly has made immigration processing much more challenging. Has deterred some applicants. They have certainly made the process of adjudicating cases much more inefficient. All of these things probably leading to where we are today. And then COVID-19 hit, which certainly accelerated issues that USCIS was already having in terms of inefficiencies, and must have been already having some financial trouble before this happened. So on their website, the USCIS provides a statement saying, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, USCIS has seen a 50% drop in receipts and incoming fees starting in March. Go on to say that they expect this will remain unchanged through the end of the year, and that they are essentially in a financial crisis at this point. Now, again, there's a lot of things that have led up to this point, but this is where we are now, and this is coming on top again of the executive order limiting H-1B, L, J visa holders from obtaining visas and entering the U.S. If they fall into the focus of the order, and we've written a piece on that I encourage you to take a look at. Assuming that this is going to actually go into effect, now Congress still can provide a bailout of USCIS. It's questionable whether that's going to happen, but something to keep an eye on, or whether that's going to happen quickly enough. Assuming that this is going to happen, it's always best to be prepared and to plan for these things. So let's take a look at three possible impacts here. There certainly are more, but we'll focus on 3 today. So the first one is just how would such a furlough impact typical case processing, right? Whether it's a H-1B processing, L-1, O-1, E-visa processing from within the U.S., whatever it might be. There are obviously, change of status applications filed where somebody's changing from one status type to the other from within the U.S. So an H-1B individual changing to O-1 status, or there's change of employer applications where an H-1B holder moves from company A to company B, or you have extension of status applications. So a status H-1B holder is about to run out of time on their authorized period of stay. That's referred to as the I-94, and they need to file an extension to maintain their status, to continue being able to work and to live in the U.S. So it's really hard to imagine that the Immigration Service is going to be able to stick anywhere near its current processing times. So, whether that be, we'll talk about premium processing, the expedited processing in a minute, but just kind of regular processing where, processing times might be, several months. These processing times are certainly going to balloon, right? And that is going to be really difficult from a planning standpoint when companies are wanting to onboard, the best talent out there that they can find, and it's when they're engaging in workforce planning, it's certainly is challenging. So if we take a couple of those scenarios, at least in this for H-1B holders in particular, changing from one employer to the other, it is true that there's some reprieve there because as soon as that change of employer application is received by the Immigration Service, the individual is allowed to start working at that new employer. Now, that being said, under the Trump administration, there have been so many requests for evidence, increased rates of denials that, a lot of times employees do not want to start based on that receipt, but instead want to wait for approval. And if that's the case, then these extended processing times are certainly going to be problematic. Now, that is, again, kind of a reprieve for those in H-1B. For those in every other status type, somebody on an O-1 who has incredible ability in their field, moving from company A to company B, if company B wants to onboard that person as quickly as possible, it's going to be very challenging if it's going to take, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months for a case to be processed, right? And one has to imagine that those processing times are just going to, are going to greatly increase. And merely filing that application does not allow the individual to start working at that next company. So it's really would have a tremendous impact. So that's kind of the first impact that I imagine we would see, and something that companies are really going to have to plan for. And there may be some solutions there, but that is going to be an issue. So moving on to the second impact, I referenced real quickly premium processing, or this expedited processing. So a lot of companies rely on premium processing. There's an extra government filing fee paid for this, and adjudications have to happen within 15 days, which puts USCIS on the clock. If there's additional requests for evidence, then once one responds to that, there's again this 15-day a period of time that kicks in. And this is what companies use to accelerate that onboarding, to also accommodate employees not wanting to start in an H-1B transfer situation where they're moving to another company, where they don't want to start just based on the Immigration Service receiving that application, but they want to see the case is actually going to get approved, which is certainly reasonable given the difficult adjudication standards that are currently in place. So without premium processing, that won't be possible. So it's going to put individual employees and companies kind of in a tough spot how to deal with that. Again, those outside of the H-1B realm, so an O-1 visa holder, for example, again, premium processing can expedite that approval so they can start. Without that, it's going to be months and months and months of processing. So premium processing, I can't imagine that the Immigration Service is going to be able to meet those premium processing deadlines if 2/3 of their workforce is gone. So have to imagine that would fall away as well. Obviously, all of this is to be seen, but that seems to be a reasonable guess at what would happen. And then lastly, it's going to be so much left to be seen on what's going to happen with adjudication standards in this scenario, where there's only 1/3 of the workforce left. There's going to be, we'll assume the same amount of cases being filed. What's going to happen with all those cases, not just from a timing standpoint, but how are officers going to adjudicate those cases? Are they going to double down and be even more difficult and aggressive in the burdens of proof and how they interpret standards that need to be met for these cases? Will that delay cases even longer? Are they going to issue more requests for evidence to buy time, or not? I mean, there's a big question mark there, how that is actually going to play out in reality. And of course, approval rates, inefficiencies in processing, again, hurt businesses in terms of being able to onboard, and of course place the employees who need immigration status to work under even more stress and strain than they already have to endure under normal circumstances. So these are three issues to start thinking about. We'll obviously track to see what happens and whether there is going to be a bailout for USCIS. There's also, just a lot to be seen in terms of the political landscape and how things might change or how that might, impact this situation. So there's still a lot to come. So I certainly recommend that you tune back in. We will have updates as things occur. So thank you so much. This is certainly a challenging time. Hopefully this information is helpful. So good luck. Don't hesitate to reach out with questions, and please tune in again. If you liked this episode, please feel free to recommend this to others, or to leave a comment and your thoughts on the episode. Okay, thank you so much.